Welcome, welcome. What a wonderful thing that you've come to join us this evening for this really, really remarkable celebration of some of the great art that we are showing you. I want to quickly point out to you that we are not showing it to you tonight. The galleries have already closed. So if you haven't seen the art, you're going to have to come back and have a proper tour through on our opening hours, which are noon through 5 o'clock. Tuesday through Saturday. There are also docent tours. We have some of our experts in the house tonight. And so believe me, if you come back by arrangement or just on your own, improvisationally, you'll have an amazing experience. Please come back and see them, particularly after you've heard the amazing interview we're about to have tonight. I'm Stephen Barker. I'm the Dean of the Claire Trevor School of the Arts. I also have the honor of being the Executive Director of the UCI Institute and Museum for California Art, which is the unit, the phenomenon, the project that we are building through the art of the 20th and early 21st century in California, one of the most ambitious art projects going on anywhere at the moment. We've become famous coast to coast for our ambition. All we have to do now is live up to it. And so it's my great honor to introduce to you tonight two absolutely pivotal figures in the local, by which I mean Southern California art scene. I'm going to read the introductions that I have promised I will deliver verbatim. Without changes, Carol A. Dunston. Carol Dunston is an independent art and interior advisor from Southern California. She's the one on the right, by the way. Your left. Yeah, your left. No, you're not Carol. Right. Hey, all right. In 1980, Carol began selling and designing with furniture from companies Herman Miller and Knoll International, using designs by Eames, Noguchi, Bertoia, Mies van der Rohe, etc. Corporate clients included the Irvine Company and Disney. In 1983, Carol worked directly with Donald Bren to curate the Irvine Company art collection. Artwork was from the James Corcoran Gallery and Leo Castelli Gallery. It was during this period artist friendships were forged. Billy Al Bengston was already legendary with a colorful style, and it was through Billy and Jim Corcoran that many exhibitions became possible. One of the exhibitions Carol and Thais Bren curated at the Herman Miller showroom in Irvine was titled Eames Art and Timeless Design. This show included pieces rarely seen by the public on loan from the Buck collection. She then went on to become a member of the Laguna Art Museum Board of Trustees, but after about 2 years resigned to travel the world on a 53-foot sailboat. She was also a partner in the Chevron Gallery in Irvine, whose inaugural show included art from Peter Alexander, Charles Arnoldi, Don Baccardy, Larry Bell, Tony Berlant, Laddie John Dill, Frank Geary, Joe Good, Ed Moses, Kenny Price, Ed Ruchet, and Billy Al Bengston. Carol and Billy have been close friends for about 35 years. They've been on many group vacations down to Baja together, including one that inspired Billy's Lost at Sea paintings in 1996 and 7. It was on this trip that the group got lost on a fishing boat in the Sea of Cortez, and in an effort to comfort Carol, Billy wrapped his arm around her and said, "What's the worst that could happen? We could die." Comforting words indeed. So, Carol is accompanied by our artist for the evening, Billy Al Bengston, who truly is a legend in California art for the amazing variety of work that he did over the years, about which we'll hear a good deal this evening. Billy's bio, if you have had a chance to look at his website, is a very interesting one, and at his request, I'm going to deliver it verbatim. Born 6/7/34, Dodge City, Kansas. Started migrating to Los Angeles, summer 1944. Made it perm 1948. Learned home ec, farming, and animal husbandry, Kansas. Began surfing and gymnastics in 47. 49 to 52, attended manual arts in LA and learned shop, jive, and ceramics. Worked display in 52-53, beach attendant that summer. 1955, LACC, primarily ceramics and gymnastics. 55-56, ceramics and painting, arts and crafts, Oakland. 56-57, ceramics with Volkos, LA Art Institute. Ditched ceramics for painting in mid-1957. NEA and Guggenheim grants in my 20s. The rest is history of painting, surfing, motorcycle racing, odd jobs, one child. Finally, a great marriage to Wendy Al in 1995. My real job is painting pictures and paying attention. I am an adequate cook and exceptional braggart still. For more details, do your research and use your imagination. Billy, Al, and Carol.
Well, Billy, I wanted to ask you, how did you decide to stay in Southern California when all the money and all the fame, typically at that time, was in New York? What was the LA art scene like back then?
The surf in New York, pre-wetsuit, was impossible. And my friends are in Los Angeles. And there was no Peter Voulkos in New York. And no Ken Price. And I can go on and on. Fabulous artists that are, in my opinion, better than anything that was coming out of New York. So why would I go to New York? It's cold there. And hot there. Ugh.
Well, when you were back there, you were sort of, through the years, you became legendary, and there was this group.
Back where?
When you were in Los Angeles with the Ferus Gallery. In fact, going way back, Joan Quinn was your oldest and, what does she say, oldest and longtime friend. And she talked about the influence of motorcycle racing and meeting Joan and what that was like and how you were so, you were a pistol, cantankerous.
Easy to get along with.
What'd you say?
Easy to get along with.
Yes, oh, definitely. I mean, Frank Gehry told me, he said, you should have known Billy back then. He said, if you think he controls it now, you should have seen him then. Everybody looked up to you. So can you tell me, so what was it like? I mean, being around Keenholz and Walter Hopps, I mean, these are very eccentric characters.
Smart alecks.
They were.
And we were all poor, so we shared the same poorness together. And it was nice. And I'm glad I'm past that.
So when you guys would have these shows, for instance, when Andy Warhol became part of your group for a while, there were some pretty interesting and famous pictures of you and Andy. And what was it like? What was the relationship with Andy like?
Andy's just a little jerk, you know?
What were the good things?
That's the best thing.
That's the best thing. Did he have any influence on your work?
Absolutely none.
Absolutely none. Aha.
Well, I don't see any, as a matter of fact.
Who would you say influenced your work the most?
Peter Voulkos.
Peter Voulkos.
Yes.
And that was what, 1956, 57?
Oh, before that.
Before that.
Yeah. I've always looked up to Pete.
And Pete was your instructor and Kenny Price?
Yeah, for a while. But we were in total awe of Pete before he became an instructor down here. Yeah.
And what was his personal situation? What did, was he part of Ferus?
sort of on ancillary on the edge at the original gallery, which was across the street and run by Kienholz. But I'm trying to think if he had a show there. Yeah, he did have a show there. And as the term goes, it went over like a turd in the punch bowl.
So some of your friends had some questions they wanted me to ask you. So I want to give you the most serious one, which is from Jim Ganser.
Ganser serious?
Exactly.
Where is
So his question, he seriously wants to know, how did you get the name Moondoggie? And were you a better surfer or motorcycle rider?
Mediocre on both. And Moondoggie came because, to my knowledge, in 1953, nobody except me had a beard.
Had a beard?
Yeah, I had a beard and long hair.
You had a beard?
And long hair.
Oh my God.
Yes. And Moondoggie is the only other person that anybody knew that had a beard and long hair.
Oh.
And I had that because I didn't get my hair cut and I didn't cut my beard.
Well, there you go.
And I lived on the beach.
Well, Ganser thought maybe you had that name because you were riding the surfboard and shining your rear end.
Well, that's not the reason.
Okay. All right. And your good friend Don Bacardi.
Where is he?
Yes, well, he tried to come in. He called me and it was crazy. But in any case, he said if you were a portrait artist, and I think I know the answer to this, out of the many women you have known, which one would you want to do the portrait of? And he...
None.
None? Out of all the women you've known, you wouldn't want to paint any portrait?
No, naked's a different story, but...
Well, he didn't put any limitations on it.
Well, that's a limitation.
Okay, all right. And let's see, some of the others was by Andy Moses. Do you think, and this was a pretty serious question, do you think the work by you and other Ferus Gallery artists was the first true break from European art?
That's a naive question.
Naive?
Yeah, because hardly any of us knew European artists. You knew what you saw in reproductions, but that doesn't count. And no,
And why do you say that doesn't count?
it just doesn't count. But the artists I knew at the time felt that we were going to be West Coast artists and the best artists in the world.
In the world?
Yeah.
Do you know, I've often considered you the finest colorist maybe in history.
I doubt that, but I'll take it.
And I also found it very interesting that one of your famous sayings, you know, making, what was it, chicken salad?
Out of chicken.
Out of chicken. Excuse my French, but you and Kienholz were able to use whatever was available and create what we consider today very famous and valuable works of art.
Well, Ed was a different story. Ed and I used to have to work together, and Ed was the boss man, so I always wound up doing the top roofing and falling down more than anybody else. So I don't know how we remained friends, other than I'd take him out motorcycle riding and I'd dump him like a turd.
You dump him.
Yeah.
Well, and so you, and then Walter Hopps, tell me how that fit in, because Walter Hopps seems the opposite of Kienholz.
Well, he was the opposite of everyone. He was the resident intellectual, and you know, he's the only peer we had that always wore a coat and a tie, and he was an intellectual. Wish he was here. Boy, he's smart as a whip. He knew more about art than anybody.
What about Irving Blum?
He knew more about art than anybody.
Than anybody.
Yeah, easily. He taught art history, and he knew contemporary art, and he knew contemporary artists because he made a point of going to visit contemporary artists everywhere. And everybody had open arms for him because he was so intelligent, and he had a good sense of humor.
How did you guys keeping on when things weren't selling and there wasn't a lot of money, and but yet you guys were so serious?
We had jobs. It's called working.
So tell me about your jobs while you were being an artist. How do you work and be an artist?
Well, I was a beach attendant at Doheny, which was cool. I didn't do any work that summer, but had a good time. Met a lot of good people, friends of mine today, and where the hell are they? They should be here. I knew all the great surfers of that time, and it's been a lifelong pleasure to me, and it still is.
Did that influence your art and your choices in art?
It didn't do that, but the lifestyle certainly was important. You know, surfing, and as I had it, I was fortunate in that I never learned to swim, so everybody had to rescue me. So I met a lot of people, and I had to do a lot of catch-up. And it worked out fine. And, well, my friends from Orange County, they're surfers. I don't see any up here. What the hell's the matter with you guys? I still have good friends from Orange County, especially Grubby.
Grubby.
Gordon
Tell me about
Clark.
Grubby.
Surfboard. Foam and resin. And surfboard foam and resin became an artist material, primarily because of his expertise. And he was smart, and he didn't get the name Grubby for no reason.
Was he a collector of yours?
No.
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 Who were your collectors back then?
Nobody.
Nobody.
I don't think so. I think the term didn't... If you were a collector, you bought paintings back in the East Coast in those days. Sterling Holloway would have been the first collector I knew.
Sterling Holloway. He was a movie actor.
He sure was.
Exactly. You had a whole series of work.
I did?
That sort of, or artwork that revolved around the movie industry. In fact, Christopher...
Well, that's what Hollywood's famous for. You know, and Hollywood is an important place in history. More so than New York City, as far as I'm concerned.
In terms of influence, you're probably right in many ways. Christopher Knight said in 1973, you sent out a mailer to a list of artists and writers and offered them $10 for the best idea for an exhibition.
No, for a mailer.
That's right, a mailer, an announcement. And you had responses from like John Baldessari and Richard Meltzer.
Everyone.
Yep. And on the photo, you had Buster Keaton.
Yes, beautiful picture of Buster Keaton holding a rope with a knot on it. You can figure out what that looked like to a lady.
So going back to those days, I mean, that is, those are coveted pieces. The works on Masonite and then...
By me, yes.
Exactly. And whatever possessed you to pick Masonite to do, typically works were done on canvas.
Stupidity. There's no reason. It was not a good material. And I didn't want to go to the right material because it seemed too obvious, which would have been aluminum.
But you did move to aluminum.
yeah, that's when it became so obvious that I had to.
Do you think you're a bit of a contrarian? I mean, going back to the chevron.
No, I'm only in my 80s.
Well, it's sort of like if somebody says, don't paint in the middle of the painting, there you are painting in the middle of the painting.
It makes sense to me.
And is that just, what do you think prompts that? Was that...
Well, if enough people say it, it's got to be wrong.
If enough people... Okay. So that has influenced your career?
It helped me with my painting. I don't know if it's influenced my career, whatever that is.
Well, I often wonder about that. What makes a famous artist?
Beats me. It'd be nice if it was somebody who's good.
True.
That isn't necessarily the case.
Well, speaking of that, your good friend Ed Ruscha had a question he wanted me to ask you.
Good.
And
Yeah, real Ruscha question, because they're always better
yep.
than anybody's answers.
Well, you know what? I'd ask it if I could find it, but...
Is that the one he asked why you couldn't file correctly?
Here it is. In your wisdom and maturity, are you able to make sense of an artist such as Banksy?
Why would you waste your time worrying about it?
Well, a lot of people...
That's only about finance. I don't care.
So you don't consider that great art?
It's about finance. I have to ask an art dealer. I don't know.
Do you think about finance when you do paintings? Do you think about... No. You never think, okay, I'm going to...
Nope.
Never. Okay.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's nopes to all those things.
Okay. A friend of mine wanted to know, what would you say was more significant, Dentos or Draculas? And for the audience, these are considered Draculas, this most incredible screen.
I don't know. Don't give a shit.
Really?
No.
And you don't care about that either, okay. So do you have any guess what history will say?
Don't care.
Don't care. Well, you know, one of your art dealers, Jim Corcoran, thought the answer was Dracula's.
Well, that's Limbo's opinion. Could be. I don't know. You're talking commerce. I'm not in the commerce business.
Well, if you were to pick an influence, what do you think was one of your greatest influences? And what was important to you?
Art-wise, it would be Volkus.
But it's hard to understand how Volkus influenced your painting.
His stature, his demeanor, his quality of understanding of material and people. And he was such a cool guy. I always wanted to be like him. Never turned out that way.
Kenny stuck with the ceramics. And you and Kenny Price stuck with the ceramics.
Yeah, Kenny and I shared a studio, and we were talking about our various times that we're going to go through. This would have been in 1956, 57. And I said, I gave up ceramics because I said, this is a dead-end street. And Kenny was into it and got another studio. And I said, what are you doing to do, Ken? He says, I'm going to go further D out by going further D in. And he did. And to this day, I think Kenny is one of the most original artists I've ever known. Easily.
I would have to agree with you. It took a long time, though, for people to accept what he did, and for museums and dealers and collectors.
That's not our concern.
Yeah.
We work on a different level.
That's so incredible. It appears that you're self-motivated.
Well, why not? There should be one person who sort of understands what he's doing.
Let me just ask another question. What impact did Hawaii have on your career, and why? Because you made
shoulders.
A big change. Lowered your shoulders.
I don't know. It was just nice. Before, I was always escaping from Los Angeles because it was a good place to escape from.
But yet you stayed.
Well, it's a good place to come back to. There's no plague like home. Different air, different influences are nice, but it's nice to have a studio that you can call home, and that's where you take your influences to.
And your Hawaiian series took a long...
There's no series.
I know,
There's no 1 through 10.
Right. A lot of people refer to them as series. I know you don't.
No.
You prefer to refer to them as...
Paintings.
Paintings.
Mm.
So you were happy then that you did that and took off and would go visit London or go visit Hawaii or...
I'm not an unhappy guy, that's right.
You seemed to become really happy when you met Wendy.
I sure did. I still am.
Yes, that put a huge smile on your face.
Still does.
Exactly. Well, Laddie wanted to know, do you still go in the ocean?
Very seldom in the Pacific on this side of the planet, but in Hawaii all the time. It's too damn cold here.
You don't seem to like the cold.
I don't like the cold at all.
Yet you moved to Canada for a short while.
Well, they said I'm intelligent.
Well, I was also asked by Kurt, your good friend Kurt Claybaum, how did you come to use the central image in a square format? And I think we kind of talked about it, but he specifically wanted to know about the BSA series, 1961, the blue ground with the yellow halo.
I have no idea what he's talking about. But I became involved with motorcycles after I broke my motor scooter that I rode around Europe for 6 months and then around New York for 3 months, and they dropped it off the back of the truck. And I had to take it and get it fixed at a motorcycle shop. And I liked the guys at the motorcycle shop a lot better than scooter people, so I decided to make the switch. And I was scared to death of motorcycles. So, of course, I got something that was way over my head, and it helped me learn. And I still wish I could race.
Race motorcycles?
Yeah.
You often, I've visited you with like Carrie and Stephen, and you seem to love to talk about motorcycle racing days and motorcycles. And
Oh, yeah, bench racing is a full-time job.
And it nearly killed you.
Well, it's a big deal. I'm still alive.
Very true, very true.
And I have professional racer friends that are still alive, still kick tires all the time.
Really?
Sure.
Going back to the Ascot days?
Sure. That was a lot of fun. You can't imagine how much fun it was. I'd drive up in my pickup truck. I'd go out, and my motorcycle is waiting for me with two guys, one that pushed it and the other that tuned and started it and did all that other stuff. And line up, they'd push out the motorcycle, they'd start it, and I'd get on it, they'd pat me on the back, and I'd go around the track 4 or 5 times, and then I'd come back in, then I'd have to do it again for the next heat or main event, and then afterwards I'd go upstairs to the announcer's box and I'd get cash in my hand. That was bitching.
And were you good?
Good enough. I'd win.
Well, one of my very favorite paintings ever is Busby. And
It has nothing to do with motorcycle racing.
it doesn't?
Nope.
Busby does not.
No. Busby was painted before I was a racer. Busby was after my favorite movie director, Busby Berkeley. Don't, every centered, all centered. No?
Ah. Well, that was during that whole period where you were focused on Hollywood and
$1 Million Legs, yeah.
seeing lots of movies. Seeing lots of movies. Well, then, how did you transition to? What was the inspiration to using metal and car paint and whacking it with a hammer? And did that have to do with the racing days?
No, it had to do with looking.
Okay.
For instance, a flat surface does not reflect as well as a corrugated surface or an altered surface. So that's why they were dented. And I started on masonite, which is material for sure. And they're flat as a pancake. The paintings today still look good, but they didn't give me enough.
They didn't give you enough?
So I stopped doing them.
When you say didn't give you enough, satisfaction or?
Just didn't give me enough.
Just didn't give you enough.
I'm selfish.
I see. Well, I don't know many artists that were experimenting or using that kind of material at the time. So you just came up with it?
Well, it's because I was, to make odd money, I'd paint people's motorcycles. So I had that ability. And you know, if you paint somebody's motorcycles, it's so much harder than making a painting. Because if you paint a motorcycle tank, you have no idea how a piston head will look with that thing. And, I mean, it has to be perfecto, or you don't collect your $50.
Oh, God. You always seem to go after a material and then just work it to perfection.
Why not?
Well, a lot of people nowadays, the art scene today,
That's your scene, not mine. I don't know it.
You don't know it.
Don't care, don't know.
So whatever's current doesn't influence what you do. It's what
Not in the art scene, no. Why would it?
a lot of artists are influenced by other artists.
Why?
Very good question. I think that
It's good to be around other artists to see the fun and drama that goes on, but to take somebody else's gig, you're not going to do it as well as they do. It's like if I were a dancer and I say I'm going to dance like Fred Astaire, it's not going to happen. That's the way it works. You can look at them and enjoy them, but you can't do what they do. So you get to dance like the clumsy oaf and try and make that a profession.
and you, in a way, are a Renaissance guy. I mean, every time I come and visit you at various places, not only do you do paintings, but furniture and rugs, and you used to decorate windows going way back at Desmond's department store. You're
true.
always changing your house, moving bathrooms here, kitchens there. I remember one time going into the place on Hampton, and I go right in, I'm charging in, and there's a wall right in front of me.
I'll be damned.
Where there used to be a staircase, bam.
You're supposed to keep your eyes open when you're going to put your...
Well, I've learned at your place or Chuck Arnaldi's place, a variety of you tend to think of architecture as though it were something easily moved around.
I don't think either Chuck or I ever made a plan or got a permit.
That is very true. So, in fact, Chuck had a question. Do you have any regrets?
About what?
He said that's up to you.
regret things that I couldn't do because I had to do other things, but nothing serious. Nah, not really. I'd like to have been a little better racer, but I wasn't as good as I could have been. And that's about it.
Good. Well, Frank Gehry said he wishes you, he has an immense respect and love for you. And he said, his question was, what do you dream about?
To the best of my ability, I don't remember any dream I've ever had. I don't waste my time with that stuff.
With dreaming?
When you're sleeping, you don't have to waste your time thinking about it afterwards.
So you don't daydream and think of, wish about things or dream?
No, I'm a specific daydreamer.
Specific. How do you decide? 1 minute you're doing dentos, and the next minute you're doing...
It's not 1 minute. It's more like 1 year.
So it takes you a while before you change what you're working on?
It takes a little while to osmose. Yeah, and it takes a little while to assemble material. It takes a little while to figure out how to do things. And I'm about the end of my rope.
Really?
Yeah. I can't hardly... There's nothing I can think of right now that I think would be significant that's new. For me.
For you.
Mm-hmm.
I find that hard to believe.
Well, you don't have to.
And how does family figure into your career?
What do you mean?
Or your direction? The fact that you have all this wonderful time with Wendy, and Tika's out running around doing what Tika does, and...
That's what they do. I love Wendy. I spend as much time possible with her. And I hardly ever like to be away from her. And my daughter comes and goes as she wishes. She's 20-some years old. And you might be able to remember when you were 20-something years old.
Maybe.
I can sort of remember what I was. And I don't want to go back there.
You have a very happy life now. So how does looking back through all the years and museum shows and gallery shows and all the things, what are the things that stick out the most in your memory?
Anytime I get lucky and make a good picture. That's about all I care about. If in terms of the art world, I don't care about the other crap.
Well, you did a beautiful show with at MoCA for H.C. Westerman.
Oh, yeah, well,
and
that's a different story. That's a privilege to work with Westerman. And I was thrilled. I mean, he's one of the few that you can look at in depth all the time.
H.C. Westerman.
You betcha. Horace Clifford Westerman.
Yes, Clifford Westerman. He was another one that had very unusual work.
You know, he's a Southern Californian.
No.
Yeah, and he went to manual arts for a year.
And you went to manual arts.
You betcha.
And is that where you picked up your desire to change and work with a variety of materials and experiment?
No. I was too hormonal for that.
Too what?
Hormonal.
Hormonal.
You know what I was thinking about.
Yeah. And what about your teaching career?
What career?
Well, you taught at how many different places?
I don't know.
UCLA.
That's just a job. It's the same as a dishwasher.
Really?
You learn how to do it, and you do it. It's a lot harder than to wash dishes correctly, I'll tell you.
Everything you do, you have to bring a sort of, it seems like you have to perfect.
Well, I don't have to, but I try and get pretty good at a lot of things. Yeah.
What do you think you're the best at?
Avoiding answers.
And I'd say you're damn good at it. Well, so, do we have any questions from the audience?
Good, let's go to bed.
Yes.
Did I enjoy home economics? I enjoyed it a little bit, but I was pretty good at home economics before I took home economics. Because growing up in Kansas, you have to work at something, and mine was almost always kitchen work, and I preferred that to shoveling, you know. So.
Yes.
Can you expand a little bit on your relationship with Peter Vulpes and why you admire him so much?
Do you know Pete?
Unfortunately, I don't.
He's the most unusual person you'll ever meet. The most heroic, the nicest, and doing what he does, there's never been anybody in history, as far as I can see, that's any better than he is. I mean, and when he went to Japan, they fell in love with him. He went over to study ceramics. Instead, they studied him. So, no, Pete was a absolute phenomena. And they don't come around all the time. If you've ever seen anybody wedge 60 pounds of clay in one fell swoop, pat it into a circle, put it onto a wheel, and pull it up that high, one fell swoop, you can't talk. It's amazing. And then he makes it into a shape. And then he cuts it off the wheel, which he's stronger than any 10 people. He used to pick me up and put me in the kiln when I made too much noise. He was great. Hope he's still with us. I haven't seen him for a long time.
Yes.
So, Vulpes was at Black Mountain,
Yeah.
and I knew him.
At the same time?
No, I wish. Which Albers wouldn't let
Yeah.
me in. But it was such a fascinating institution. And I know you don't have answers to things, but in our circumstances today, what sort of education and environment do you think that we might have that would give such or produce such in variety of art in the United States?
That's a choice each individual has to make, and they have to study it to find out, There's no rules in the arts, as far as I'm concerned, other than do it right.
I'm not just referring to education.
I don't know about education.
Well, I have a dentist.
You what?
She has a
I
dento.
have a dentist.
Good.
And it's one of the most favorite things I have. And one of the reasons is because of the light reflection, the way you smashed it. So,
Yeah?
good job.
Yeah. Who was it that said about Calder, somebody being snide said, the least you can expect from a work of art is that it doesn't move. I disagree.
Well, it never sits right. And the great thing about it is you just go up to
Yeah, it doesn't.
don't touch the
It doesn't
art,
sit still.
wipe it off, and it's easy.
Mm-hmm. I did that.
One time you told me that the dentos, you wanted to be able to have a painting that didn't crack or didn't, and that you could drive down the middle of the street with it, and I think the dentos sort of achieved that.
Huh?
No?
I think you must have misquoted me there.
I probably did. I probably did. But it had something to do with the surface.
It had to do with you never see it the same way twice. Which is sort of the problem with most art, is you just see it the same way. It's an illustration of something. And if it's got glass on it, you never see it. So that's where I got the idea for dentos. So you got glass somewhere.
That's very good. So what are you working on now?
I'm not working.
You're not working at all?
I'm getting paid for this, I think.
All
I got a
right.
yes down there somewhere. That's good.
Any more questions? Yes?
If you describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
If you described yourself in one word, what would it be?
I don't think I can do that in one word. I'd have to put moderately in front of everything. Moderately adequate, and so on and so forth.
Anybody else?
Old. I'm old.
I want to thank you, Billy. I want to thank Carol. Thank you all for coming this evening and paying such wonderful attention to a unique opportunity to see one of the really great figures of the second half of the 20th century in California art.
My figure's not so good anymore.
Have a great evening.